This is a multi-billion-dollar merger ceremony, not an orientation session for temporary employees. Blake Harrington blocked Leah Morgan outside the private reception room, his eyes moving from the worn cuffs of her jacket to her simple shoes. He did not know that the woman he had just humiliated could decide the fate of the entire deal, and that mistake was smaller than what was hidden inside the documents behind him. Leah arrived at the Harrington Freight lobby nearly an hour early. Her dark blue suit was slightly worn at the cuffs but carefully pressed. At the registration desk, the employee checked the guest list twice before hesitating. "I see your name under Morgan Bridge Holdings, but there is no title listed." "A guest badge is enough," Leah answered. At that moment, Blake walked past, noticed the badge without a job title, and immediately assumed she was an administrative assistant traveling with the Lantern Logistics legal team. After stopping her at the door, he shifted his body to block the entrance. "This area is reserved for executives and shareholders. Support staff wait in the rear." Before Leah could answer, Blake called sharply toward a young woman pushing a document cart. "Tessa, where are the files I requested?" Tessa Morales turned too quickly. One wheel caught in the carpet, sending the documents across the stone floor. The executives walked around her as though she were invisible. Leah immediately bent down to help. "I'm sorry. I will organize everything again," Tessa said. Her hands were shaking so badly that she dropped another folder. "You do not need to apologize because a wheel became stuck." Leah separated the documents by page code and restored them to the correct order. A thin bronze flash drive slipped from behind Tessa's badge. Leah quietly picked it up and handed it back. Blake folded his arms. "Good. Since you are so eager to be useful, take everything into the signing room. When you finish, remain outside the guest area." Tessa gathered her courage. "Mr. Harrington, she may represent Morgan Bridge. We should verify." "People with real authority do not arrive wearing a suit from the discount rack." Several executives laughed. Leah felt the small note inside her jacket touch her fingertips. Her mother, Ruth, had purchased that suit for $79, with money saved from working night shifts. The note carried words Leah had read hundreds of times. "Do not let the room decide your value." The laughter continued behind her, but Leah remembered her mother's calloused hands more clearly than any expression in that room. She did not argue. Instead, she helped Tessa push the cart, keeping the wheel from catching in the carpet again. Blake smiled as though he had returned a subordinate to her proper place. Inside the signing room, contracts were arranged across a long wooden table. As Leah placed down the final folder, she noticed the financial obligations schedule, stopped at one line, and calculated silently. The pension liability is missing $18.6 million. Blake turned sharply. "Are you reading confidential documents? If this figure is not corrected, the share conversion ratio will exceed the limit approved by both sides." He laughed. "An assistant in a discount suit is teaching us how to complete a merger? Bring coffee into the conference room if you want to be useful." Leah kept her eyes on the figures. "You should contact the chief financial officer before these documents are presented for signature." The room became quiet. An irritated finance executive picked up the schedule and reviewed it. His expression changed. "She is right. The Southern Pension Fund obligation was not included." Blake tightened his jaw but did not apologize. "She probably saw a lawyer's note. Correct it. Tessa was assigned to update the document index, but the system reported that a linked file had been damaged. Blake checked his watch and warned her not to delay the signing ceremony. Leah pulled over a chair, opened the automatic backup folder, and restored the correct version within a few steps. Tessa stared at her. This system was introduced only last week. How do you know its storage structure? It was designed so no one could erase the history of changes, Leah answered. Then she quietly lowered the screen as Blake approached. The elevator doors opened. Eleanor Harrington immediately noticed Leah. She started walking toward her, but a secretary reported that the financing bank had requested an urgent call. Leah gave a slight nod, signaling that Eleanor should handle it. Eleanor looked at her with clear understanding, then entered the room beside the lobby. Tessa had witnessed the entire exchange. She looked at Leah's badge without a title, then toward Eleanor. The suspicion in her eyes caused her hand to tighten around the bronze flash drive. When the signing room was temporarily empty, Leah examined the final set of documents again. Appendix 9C felt lighter and thinner than the version she had reviewed the previous evening. She turned to the Employment Protection section. 4 pages guaranteeing continued employment for 24 months had disappeared. In their place, 3 distribution center addresses had been marked inside a new provision. Leah checked the page numbers and noticed that the footer style was different from the rest of the document. The encrypted phone inside her pocket vibrated. A message from Rachel Kim contained only one sentence. Version code K41 was never approved by us. Do not sign. Leah compared the document with the index. More than a few pages were missing. The promise protecting 1,200 workers had been removed from the version prepared for signature. She turned toward Tessa. The young woman had become pale, and one hand had unconsciously moved to cover the flash drive behind her employee badge. Leah placed a finger on the names of the 3 distribution centers. Who gave you this version? Tessa's lips had just begun to open when the door flew inward. Blake entered, slammed it behind him, and held out his hand toward the appendix. Give me every document, right now. Blake pulled Appendix 9C from Tessa's hands, flipped through several pages, and pressed it against his chest. This is only a formatting update requested by the Strategy Department. Neither of you has the authority to search through these files. Leah stood calmly before him. If only the format changed, why did the provision guaranteeing 24 months of continued employment disappear? That is not something an assistant is allowed to question. Tessa took a deep breath. This version came from your office. You personally told me to. After the signing ceremony, I will review whether you still have a position here. Tessa fell silent. Her father still depended on her health insurance while recovering from a stroke. Leah did not pressure her to continue. Tessa, you do not need to risk your livelihood before you are protected from retaliation. Blake laughed. What authority do you have to make promises to my employee? Leah left the room. In the service hallway, security officers were preventing a man in a warehouse jacket from entering the executive area. I was invited as a representative of the Workplace Safety Group, he said. My name is Marcus Reed. Your name is not on the private guest list, the security officer answered. Marcus had just completed a night shift, and exhaustion showed across his face. Leah brought him a chair and a glass of water without first asking about his title. You came because of the 3 distribution centers, did you not? She asked. Marcus looked up. How do you know? Their names appear in the new appendix. He lowered his voice. The 3 centers had been ordered to inventory their machinery. He had also seen a map showing asset transfers immediately after the merger, but managers had instructed employees to describe it only as a maintenance review. How many people work there? More than 1,200, some are only 2 years away from qualifying for retirement. In several families, both spouses work inside the same warehouse. Marcus showed her a photograph of the warehouse team standing beside relief trucks after a storm. They slept on the floor for 3 nights to keep the shipments moving. If the centers are going to close, those workers deserve to hear the truth. Rachel Kim called. The approved version contains 64 pages. The version on the signing table contains only 60. It was replaced at 11:43 last night. What about Code K41? It is not valid. The new language also permits the sale and leaseback of assets, without a separate board vote during the first 90 days. This was no longer a formatting discrepancy. Someone was creating a path to transfer assets before the workers learned what was happening. Eleanor returned. Leah did not mention the way Blake had treated her. She only showed Eleanor the previous index, the new page count, and Rachel's message. We need to delay the ceremony and examine Appendix 9C. Eleanor immediately called Blake over. Where are these 4 pages? Blake had another opportunity to stop. Instead, he answered. The employment protection provision was only goodwill language. Removing it allows the bank to release the financing more quickly. Who approved the change? Leah asked. The strategy department is responsible for optimizing the transaction. Eleanor checked the time. Delay the ceremony for 15 minutes. Blake warned her. The press, shareholders, and banks are already waiting. A delay will damage market confidence, and the share price could collapse. Opening music echoed from the ballroom. Leah understood that he was using time as a weapon. Sign first, investigate later. When Eleanor stepped away to answer a call, Tessa approached Leah and discreetly placed the bronze flash drive in her hand. It contains the automatic backup created before Mr. Harrington ordered me to replace the appendix. I am not ready to speak publicly, but I do not want 1,200 people to lose their jobs because I remained silent. Leah closed her fingers around the drive. You will not be forced to testify alone. A voice came from behind them. Give that to me. Blake called security. She has taken confidential documents. Keep her outside the ballroom until Lantern's real representative arrives. The security officers moved forward. Eleanor stepped between them and Leah. No one is to touch her. Before she could explain, the event host announced that the signing ceremony was beginning. Blake walked toward the executive table and spoke loudly enough for Leah to hear. The assistant wearing a suit that cost $79 is finally back where she belongs. Leah remained at the rear of the ballroom under security supervision. Eleanor took the microphone. This transaction is being completed through Morgan Bridge Holdings. Please welcome the person who controls 57% of Lantern Logistics to the stage to confirm ownership. Eleanor looked toward the back of the room. Leah began walking forward through the whispers. Rachel placed a beneficial ownership declaration on the table beside a pen engraved with the letters L and M. Every step Leah took echoed through the ballroom. She was still wearing the same suit Blake had decided did not belong in that room. The executives who had laughed now avoided her eyes. Leah removed the cap from the pen and signed slowly. Leah Morgan, founder of Lantern Logistics and controlling shareholder with 57% ownership. The screen displayed the conversion structure. Leah would hold 54% of the voting rights in the combined corporation. The people who had mocked her became silent. Blake jumped to his feet, his face pale. "You concealed your identity. You caused this misunderstanding." Leah looked at him. "Not knowing who I am may explain a mistake. It cannot excuse contempt." She placed the pen on the table but did not touch the final merger agreement. Instead, Leah raised Appendix 9C before the silent ballroom. "No transaction will be completed until we learn why 1,200 workers were removed from this promise. The ceremony is suspended." Leah held Appendix 9C before hundreds of watching eyes. "I am not refusing to sign because Mr. Blake mocked my suit. I am refusing because the agreement was altered." Blake jumped to his feet. "You are turning a lawful restructuring decision into a scandal so you can take control of Harrington Freight." The security officers waited for instructions, but Leah shook her head. "Mr. Blake has the right to remain, receive legal counsel, and present his explanation. Justice does not begin by silencing the accused." Rachel displayed the authentication codes. The approved version contained 64 pages. The version on the signing table contained only 60 and carried the invalid code K41. Eleanor stepped toward the microphone. "Effective immediately, every employee who provides information will receive temporary protection from dismissal, transfer, or any other form of retaliation." Tessa came forward. She confirmed that Blake had ordered her to replace Appendix 9C without sending the revised version to Lantern. The bronze flash drive contained the automatic backup, messages, and printer records. All three were marked 11:43 the previous night. Blake did not deny giving the order. "Those 3 distribution centers are performing poorly. Closing them will reduce debt, keep the banks involved, and protect thousands of other jobs." Leah answered, "Restructuring may be necessary, but you concealed the plan from shareholders, workers, and the merger partner." Marcus presented the machinery transfer map and the notice instructing employees to describe the plan as a maintenance review. The addresses matched those listed in the altered appendix. The Ridgeway records did not name Blake directly, but the ownership trail led to a family trust under his control. One of his emails stated, "The assets must be transferred before the new Labor Council receives veto authority." Leah gave him one final opportunity. "Do you have a financial interest in Ridgeway?" Blake looked directly at her. "No?" Banking records proved that Blake indirectly owned 22% of Ridgeway. The planned sale and leaseback transaction was an undisclosed conflict of interest. Eleanor stood. "I trusted Blake too much because he is family. I accept responsibility, and I will remove myself from every vote involving my nephew." The board voted to suspend Blake, freeze all transactions with Ridgeway, and maintain operations at the 3 distribution centers. Leah refused to assume immediate control. "We cannot correct an abuse of power with another unilateral decision." She ordered a 3-week investigation and gave Blake the right to legal counsel, access to the records, and the opportunity to respond. 3 weeks later, the investigation confirmed that Blake had intentionally replaced the appendix, concealed his financial interest, and pressured Tessa. The board removed him, recovered the related bonuses, and transferred the records to regulatory authorities. During the final hearing, Blake no longer attempted to defend himself. "At first, I only wanted to protect my family's legacy. Then I began believing that financial results allowed me to ignore every limit. Leah did not offer forgiveness on behalf of the people he had threatened. When the goal becomes an excuse for every method, we are no longer protecting a legacy. We are destroying it. The revised agreement protected 1,200 jobs for at least 24 months. No distribution center could be sold or closed without an independent review. Every transaction involving a related party had to be disclosed. A fund was created for retraining and voluntary relocation. Employees received 2 seats on the Labor Oversight Council, access to an independent reporting system, and protection from retaliation. Rachel supervised the legal process to ensure those promises did not remain only words on paper. Every revision required a complete version history and notification to employee representatives. After a transparent evaluation of her qualifications, Tessa became a document control specialist. Marcus was elected as a labor representative. Eleanor led the transition period but surrendered the authority to appoint relatives unless they completed an independent review. 3 weeks later, the Harrington Freight lobby was illuminated once again. Leah still wore the dark blue suit that had cost $79. A reporter asked why she had not chosen something more expensive. Leah touched the worn cuff. "My mother bought this suit with money she saved from working night shifts. I do not wear it to prove that I am humble. I wear it to remember who helped me enter the first room before anyone knew my name." She removed the old note from her pocket and read, "Do not let the room decide your value." Then Leah signed the corrected merger agreement and officially became the controlling shareholder of the new corporation. Behind her stood more than the board of directors. Tessa, Marcus, and the newly appointed labor representatives were there as well, finally given a voice. Several days later, Leah visited the Southern Distribution Center in Atlanta. She met a mother saving part of every paycheck for her child's college education and a worker only 2 years away from qualifying for retirement. They did not thank her for saving a building. They thanked her because, for the first time, their future would not be decided inside a closed room. The sound of forklifts echoed through the warehouse. Marcus walked beside Leah, no longer forced to remain outside meetings where decisions about his coworkers were made. The schedule for the first Labor Council meeting had been posted for everyone to see. Leah understood that the suit had cost only $79, but the promise connected to it could never be measured by money. The value of power does not come from making other people lower their heads. It comes from protecting those who have not yet been given a voice. And success becomes meaningful only when it opens the door so the people behind us can enter as well.